Hello friends, I am Professor of Anatomy
Good
working
evening,
in a
sir.
medical college. I have a teaching experience of 23 years. I have been teaching various students of medical, dental, physiotherapy and allied sciences for the past 23 years. Not only undergraduate students, I have been involved in teaching the postgraduate students also. Additionally, I am also an examiner to the undergraduate courses of various universities in India and abroad. So you can consider this as a major experience. Further, I have also written 4 books with respect to anatomy for medical students. And I am actively involved in research activities also. Now coming to IIMSC, this is a very interesting platform which is creating online teaching facility to the faculty which should benefit to the student community. I am happy to get associated with this IIMSC. Now
Yeah, I mean,
in this IIMSC we have various courses in anatomy, but I'll be emphasizing on one particular course in this session, that is a short duration course which we have planned for 2 months. And in this course we will be covering the anatomy syllabus as prescribed by the Medical Council of India and various other universities. But here my emphasis will be mainly on the exam oriented teaching. Means our aim in this course is that whoever student undergoes this course, he or she should be able to clear their anatomy subject in the first attempt. That does not mean I am guaranteeing something or anything. I will make anatomy as simple as possible and make you to understand, but equally there should be an effort from you people. Like whatever I teach or whatever I give the points, you should be able to practice that, and any assignments given by us, you should complete in time so that it will benefit you and you can clear your anatomy at the first go. So this is our primary motto in creating this 2 months short duration course. Of course, we have many other programs wherein if you really want to gain the knowledge of anatomy, we can go for a very long term and teach you in depth. So I would like to tell that if you take this 2 months duration course, you will be passing your anatomy examination at the first go. That's a take home message for you. Now in this aspect, I would like to give a small demo on axilla, which will not be covering the entire portion, but not the entire portion, but the way it will be taught to you in the 2 months duration course, I'll be emphasizing. And in each and every topic, I would like to give you what all the probable long answers questions in this topic, short answers and very brief answers, and how do you approach them, and in what way, if you present it in the examination, you will be getting the maximum possible marks. So this is going to help you in that aspect, and my coverage of each and every topic in the anatomy under the syllabus will be on these guidelines, or this is what is my primary objective. Now, if we take up axilla, in the layman's term, the axilla is called as the armpit. So no more you will be calling it as an armpit. Now if you look at this picture, this is a pyramidal shaped structure, okay, or the space. Now whenever in anatomy, if any space, if you define anything as a space, you need to tell the boundaries of it. And more so when we define it as a pyramidal, obviously we can imagine the geometrical pyramid as it having a base and an apex. So in this picture, if you look at this black colored margined portion is the axilla, and this will be the apex. Now if you look at this apex, it is not a pointed apex, it is a truncated apex. So we say that it is a truncated apex and directed upwards. Obviously the opposite side, this one, will be the base. So you have to define the axilla is having as a apex and a base, then surfaces. Now this is, you all know that this is the thoracic wall over here, and this will be the medial wall, and opposite to that, this one will be the lateral wall. So when we define it as having a lateral wall and a medial wall, obviously it also has a anterior wall and a posterior wall. So we define axilla is a truncated pyramidal shaped structure having a anterior wall, posterior wall, medial wall, lateral wall, and apex is being directed upwards, which is a truncated apex, and base is directed downwards. So whenever it is asked as a long answer question, basically you have to give a definition for that. Means axilla, what is it? Then you have to give the boundaries of it, because we say it is a pyramidal shaped space. Once we say the shape, we should tell the medial wall, lateral wall, anterior wall, posterior wall. And then we have to tell what all the structures that constitute to form these walls. We have defined the space is being bounded by anterior wall, posterior wall, medial wall, lateral wall, base, and apex. Next point is that what all these walls are made up of or composed of, or what structures form these walls. That is what is to be said. Now if you look at in this structure, I mean this picture, you will see here this is as the apex, which we have called it as a truncated apex, and this apex is what we call it as cervico-axillary canal. As the name itself indicates, cervico, it is coming from the something related to the neck. Neck is here, and it is leading to the axilla. So the aperture that is leading the neck into the axilla is called as cervico-axillary canal, right? So that is what you have to mention then. Then you have to tell about the boundaries of cervico-axillary canal. Means what all the structures that constitute to form the cervico-axillary canal. As you can see in this picture, it is bounded anteriorly by this structure. Now this is what we call it as the clavicle over here, right? And here you are looking at this picture, this structure, which is the first one, that is the first rib. And you have all the structure here that is throughout the length, that is the scapula. So cervico-axillary canal, looking at this picture, you can say that it is anteriorly bounded by clavicle, medially bounded by the first rib, and posteriorly bounded by the scapula. So that is the boundaries of the cervico-axillary canal. Then This will be the opposite. That is the base. Base of the axilla is formed by the skin, superficial fascia and the deep fascia. That is whatever you see as a armpit space. That is what is the boundary of the base. Now coming to the other walls. Now look at this picture. This is just a schematic representation showing the anterior wall, medial as well as the posterior and the lateral. By looking at this picture, you can come to the conclusion that the anterior and the posterior wall, that is shown in the brown color as well as this yellow color, they are meeting at a narrow point. That means the lateral wall or the lateral aspect of the axilla is narrow. So you can say that anteriorly it is bounded by the or formed by pectoralis major and minor muscle. Posteriorly by the subscapularis. Medially by the serratus anterior. So by saying this, you have said all the boundaries, the structures that are forming the boundaries of all the walls, anterior, medial, lateral, and the posterior, right? So once if you have said about all the boundaries, now the next for any space in anatomy, what you should do is that you should talk about the what exactly that space encloses or consists of. So till now we have said that it is a space, what shape is the space and how that space is bounded and what are the structures that are forming the boundaries. Now you have to tell what are all the contents within that space. Look at this picture. Now here you will see some of these structures as a yellow colored one and some are the red, and there is a blue colored structure which is being cut. So these are the major structures. That means the yellow colored ones are the nerve plexus. The main nerve plexus or the content of the axilla is the brachial plexus. You all know that the complete brachial plexus will supply the upper limb. Then this is the artery of the upper limb which runs down. Now this is the axillary artery. And there is a vein over here, axillary vein. So when we talk about the contents, you have to mention about there's a presence of axillary artery, axillary vein, and brachial plexus. Additionally, in this picture, it is not been shown, you also have the axillary group of lymph nodes, right? So among these contents, when we are talking about the axilla, in the axilla, generally in the Indian universities, you can expect the axilla as one of the essay question. That is, for example, describe the boundaries and contents of axilla. The next essay question can be axillary artery. Next common essay question can be brachial plexus. Right? So these are the three essay questions can come from this. So as we have already described about axilla boundaries and the contents, now let's talk about little bit about the axillary artery, because that is one of the important essay question which can be asked. Now what you have to do is that practice this diagram. This is a very simple schematic diagram, line diagram. If you draw this diagram in the examination and label whatever here it is there, I think 40% of your axillary artery essay will be done with this diagram. Because I'll tell you, whenever an artery is asked as a essay question, what you have to write, from where does that artery begins? That is origin of the artery. Now look at this. This is a subclavian artery. This subclavian artery continues down as the axillary artery, right? And then this axillary artery continues down, and can you see this muscle? This is the teres major muscle over here. Now till the lower border of this teres major, this entire structure is what is called as the axillary artery. That means the axillary artery is a continuation of subclavian artery. From where you are looking at seeing this first rib. That's why I said this diagram, if you label everything, it will be done. First rib, from the outer border of the first rib up to where? Lower border of the teres major muscle. This artery is called as the axillary artery. Now, with that, you have said the origin of the artery. You have said the termination of the artery. You have said the extent of the artery. What is the extent? Extent is from the outer border of the first rib to the lower border of the teres major. That is the extent. How does it terminate? It at the lower border of the teres major, it continues as a brachial artery. As you can see here, it is labeled as a brachial artery. So this entire thing is the axillary artery. Now, you look at this muscle. This is a pectoralis minor muscle here. Now this muscle overlaps the axillary artery, thereby dividing the axillary artery into number one here. That is the part proximal to it. That is the first part. Then here is the part behind the artery or posterior to it. That is the second part. Then part distal to it. That is the third part. So axillary artery is having a three parts divided by this pectoralis minor muscle. So we say that it is the first part, second part and third part. Now after telling about the first part, second part and third part, now we have to talk about the branches of this axillary artery. Now what are the branches? You look at here. It is very easy to remember. The first part will have one branch. The second part will have two branches. And third part will have three branches. So 1, 2, 3. You remember in that way. The first part branch is this one, superior thoracic artery, which supplies the upper part of the thorax. Then second part, you look at this artery and there is this artery which is running all along the lower border of the pectoralis minor. Now this is the thoracoacromial artery or acromiothoracic artery, one and the same, thoracoacromial or acromiothoracic artery. Now this is second branch of the second part is the lateral thoracic. So the two branches from the second part are thoracoacromial artery and lateral thoracic artery. Now the third part, how many branches I have told? Third part has got three branches. One is this, another one is this and another one is this. Now this one is anterior circumflex humeral artery and this one is posterior circumflex humeral artery. Both are circumflex humeral. Only thing is anterior one is one and another one is posterior. Now can you look at this? This is the big branch, that is the subscapular artery. So these are the three branches of the third part. Subscapular artery, anterior circumflex and posterior circumflex humeral arteries. Now these branches you have to write. After writing about these branches, what you need to tell about the axillary arteries relations. One thing remember, there's no point in mugging up the relations in anatomy. You have to just use little bit of your brain and make the relations, for most of the relations, generalized relations and some specific relation. For example, let us take axillary artery, now which we are talking about. Now this axillary artery, this is the axillary artery. As I said, you have three parts of the axillary artery. Now separately you have to write the three parts relations, right? So first part relation, second part relation and third part relation. And in each part you have to write about medial relation, lateral relation, anterior relation and posterior relation. Now let us generalize the thing. Anterior relation, whether it is a first part, second part or third part. Just remember that anterior relations are made up of skin, superficial fascia, deep fascia and pectoralis major muscle. These are common for all the three parts. But additionally, what you have to remember is the second part also having pectoralis minor as additional anterior relation, because remember pectoralis minor is the one which is dividing this artery into three parts. So what I mean to say here is that if you remember skin, superficial fascia, deep fascia and pectoralis major, common relation, only the second part you add the pectoralis minor, so that when you are writing in the examination, you will be splitting the first part relation, then second part relation and the third part relation. Under the heading first part relation, you will write anterior, right? skin superficial fascia, deep fascia, pectoralis major. Second part, anterior relation, skin superficial, same thing. You are repeating, that's all. Skin superficial fascia, deep fascia, pectoralis major, additionally pectoralis minor here. Again, third part, anterior relation, skin superficial fascia, deep fascia and pectoralis major, right? So basically, if you remember all relation, all the three parts are same except for the second. Similarly, let's see about the medial relation. See, this is axillary artery. Here what you are seeing is the axillary vein. Now in this picture you can clearly see that the axillary vein throughout its length runs on the medial side of the artery. So commonly you can remember the medial relation for all the three parts as axillary vein. As simple as that. Okay. You just write first part medial relation axillary vein. Second part medial relation axillary vein. Third part medial relation axillary vein. That is done. Additionally, what you should remember is that always the second part of the axillary artery is related to the respective cards of the brachial plexus. As you can see, lateral card, posterior card and medial card. What I mean to say is that the second part medially related to the medial card, posteriorly related to the posterior card, laterally related to the lateral card. So simple. So when we are talking about the medial relations, first part we write axillary vein. Second part we write axillary vein and medial card of the brachial plexus. Okay. The third part is the branch of the medial cord. That is the axillary artery medially related to the axillary vein, and as you can see here, medial cutaneous nerve of the forearm, and there is a deeper structure here as you can see in this picture here, ulnar nerve. So these are the medial relations. By chance, if you forget writing about the ulnar nerve and medial cutaneous nerve of the forearm, by remembering the axillary artery as the medial structure throughout its length, at least you can write one relation, right? So that you will not leave the anything and come out empty. You will write one which is suitable. You might have not written the other two, does not matter, but at least you have mentioned about one. So that is how you have to remember. So medially, axillary vein is common to all the three. And then second part, medial card you add. Third part you add medial cutaneous nerve of the forearm and the ulnar nerve. Now coming to similarly on the lateral side, as I said, the second part will have the lateral cord, right? And the third part will have the branches of the lateral cord. What are the branches here? That is the lateral root of the median nerve and musculocutaneous nerve. Remember another thing is that for the third part of the axillary artery, you write lateral relations or the lateral branches of lateral cord. Medial relations are branches of the medial cord. Posterior relations are branches of the posterior cord. This will definitely fetch you some marks. This is in case if you forget to remember the names of the nerves. At least you can write, because second part laterally related to lateral cord, posteriorly related to posterior cord, medially related to medial cord. So third part laterally related to branches of lateral cord, medially related to branches of medial cord, posteriorly related to branches of posterior cord. So what I'm trying to tell is that in case if you are not able to remember those nerve names, at least you write the branches of lateral cord laterally, branches of medial cord medially, branches of posterior cord posteriorly for the third part. You will get some marks. Understand? So these are the relations. The posterior relations, as I said, the second part is posteriorly related to the posterior cord, and the third part branches of the posterior cord, that is mainly the radial nerve, right? So this is what is the relations. Whenever axillary artery is asked as a essay question or long answer question, basically you have to write the origin, termination, extent, its course, that means it is being overlapped by the pectoralis minor, divides into three parts: branches, relations, and then the clinical aspect. The clinical aspect of axillary artery is that it's the one of the common artery which is subjected to aneurysm. Thereby, you can see that the brachial plexus are completely covered by this, right? So, the aneurysm affects the brachial plexus. Thereby, deformity of the upper limb can be resulted. So, this is the clinical aspect of the axillary artery. Okay, is that clear? And then another factor is that the branches of the axillary artery, which will have an anastomosis with the other arteries. So thereby any blockage in the axillary artery because of the anastomosis is compensated by the collateral circulation. Okay, so these are the points which you can mention under the clinical aspects, right? And the third clinical aspect is that the axillary artery, as you can see in this picture here, here is the axillary artery, right? Here is a humerus. So if there is any distal bleeding in the upper limb, because the axillary artery is the main artery which is feeding it. If there's any distal bleeding, you can compress this axillary artery against the humerus, thereby stop the bleeding temporarily. Okay. So these are the points under which axillary artery should be studied. So it's a very simple thing, students. Whenever you are trying to read anatomy and listen anatomy, what you have to do is that you have to make it as simple as that and generalize the things and remember, so that your remembrance will be better and you can write, not that each and every minute aspect you have to remember, right? The major points you have to remember so that you can express that in the examination and you can get the better marks. So I think I will end my this session here, so that this will be complete short session, and based on this we can build up further and further. If you have any doubts, you just let me know. I will try to clarify. Anybody? Any doubts?